The reading for Chol haMoʻed, Shabbath, is not read every year. Only when there's a Shabbath in the middle of Chol haMoʻed, and there isn't one every year. But this year there is, and that's nice, because I quite like it. Great story. Yechezkel is taken away in a vision to a valley with dry bones. And God asks him, will these bones come to life? And he says, well, and says, call out to the wind, and the wind comes, and the bones stand up, and they're clothed over in flesh and all that, right? Now, there's a whole debate, actually, amongst ancient rabbinic scholars over who these bones are. And they come up with different thoughts or ideas. One of them is that it was members of a particular group who miscalculated the end time and sought to leave Egypt too early. And the main national leaders said, nope, not right, not time, don't do this. And they went and they did it anyway, and they all got slaughtered. The truth is that it was just a vision. It never actually happened. He saw a vision. It was all allegory. It was God's way of saying, just as these bones will someday come back to life, so too the house of Israel will someday come back to life, etc. Right? Okay. But there's a lesson to be taught in that particular midrashic story. And it's not, don't set out and do things on your own. Many would like to say such a thing in modern times, sit back and let God take care of things, and you shouldn't be doing things on your own, especially in connection with the modern state of Israel. There are many who have said that we shouldn't have a state until the Mashiach comes. Well, no, that's not the lesson here. The lesson is that they decided it was the end time. The Talmud says explicitly that you should never try to calculate the end time. The end will happen in whatever time God wishes. We say when we read the Haggadah that God chishev et hakes. God calculated the end time. And the truth is that our tradition teaches the end time could have been any number of things. God said it would be a 400-year period, but what's the beginning of the 400-year period? Depending upon when you start your count, you might end up with a different end count. Same thing with the 70-year exile. And there's stories of people who had miscalculated that as well. Don't worry about the end times. It'll happen when it happens. It doesn't mean you shouldn't put an effort to do things on your own. And the truth is, we don't have to wait for the end times to set up a state of Israel. There's a midrashic story that they sort of use as a basis for it, but midrash is not halakha. You definitely should get out there and try to do something with your own efforts. But don't try to force the end because you've calculated it. Putting your too much faith into that. Throughout history, there have been many people who have said, the Mashiach will come by this date. And it doesn't happen, and people lose faith. Because, guess what? It doesn't mean there isn't a Mashiach. It means you're just wrong. So do our Christian brethren, especially certain groups in modern times, have a big thing. They believe that their God will come back to earth. And many times somebody will predict it will be on this date, or it will be by this date. And it comes in pauses. We've lived through 100 ends of the world in just the past few years, and here we are. You don't put your faith into a calculation, which is your own, when you don't know if there's backing to it. Go on with your life. You should definitely try to make the best of your life, but don't put your faith in some miraculous end date when you have a world to live right now. I've heard of people who put in their wedding invitation that the wedding will be in Jerusalem because by then the Mashiach will have come, and if the Mashiach comes, the wedding's going to be, it's going to be too crowded in Jerusalem for you to have a wedding. You'll have to get somewhere else in the land of Israel. But I knew a couple who were getting married, and I asked them where they were going to live. She was originally from England, he was originally from England, but at the time she was living in Florida, he was living in New York, and she had gone to Florida to meet him, but they were both from England. So I asked, where are you going to live? They said, in Israel, in the Messianic era. I was like, well, that's wonderful, great, but how do you live your life like that? The Mashiach hasn't come yet, and yes, we hope he will by the time you get married, and then you get wonderful, great. But you need to live in this world. You need to live in the now. Work your way towards something, but don't put all your faith into some potential that might or might not happen tomorrow, might or might not happen 1,000 years from now. And I'm sure there are people who will blast me for saying it won't be for another 1,000 years, because they have convinced themselves that it must happen within the next 200 years, or within the next... But that's exactly my point, isn't it? Who knows? God does, but none of the rest of us do. Live your life, make the best of it for what it is, try your hardest, but live the life that you have now. Shabbat Shalom and Mo'adim L'Simcha.